Welcome to the Paranormal News Insider for the week of November 26th, 2019. And this is officially episode number 417. And this is your host, as always, Dr. Brian D. Parsons. And we are live here on the Paranormal King Radio Network at paranormalking.com. Was I yelling? I felt like I was yelling at you guys. I'm not yelling. I'm just excited. Tonight is the pretty much, I would say, the last regular season episode before we start the top 10 paranormal news stories of 2019 next week. And I'm going to say that probably a million times tonight. I'm excited. It's taken a lot of time, a lot of effort, and I do appreciate you, the listener, if you've taken any time to vote on my new paranormal poll page to help me figure out what the top 10 stories are, as well as what you think is number one. I do appreciate it. It's actually helped me a little bit, kind of put things in perspective a little bit. So it did help out. I do appreciate that. And I do pretty much have it finalized. It's going to take, a little bit of persuasion for me to change things at this point from how I have it put together for the top 10. I think it's pretty much cemented at this point. I'm excited about it to start it next week. But as I've always said in the last, 10 years of doing the top 10 paranormal news stories of each year, new news takes precedence. So anything going on for new news is going to take center stage. I may cut it short a little bit of talking about those stories, but at least mentioning them because that's what we're here for. But I do enjoy wrapping up the year, talking about the year that was, just so we can reflect back. There's a lot of stuff that we tend to forget every now and again from earlier in the year, and you'll see that in December when everybody's counting down everything from movies to music to stories of the year for politics and everybody else. And you'll be like, wow, I forgot that was this year. Of course it was. And celebrities and people that pass away too, we tend to look at that and forget who had passed away and all those things. Anyway, this week's news includes a Major League Baseball player. You guys know I love baseball. Love to play the game. It's a kid's game, but I still try to enjoy it as much as I can. In my old days, not that old. I feel old, though. Getting older. No one's getting younger. Unless you're in the fountain of youth. A Major League Baseball player finds Bigfoot. Big story. And, man, the Flat Earth International Conference is back again this year. Came around the globe. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Storm the Outback. And we are going to talk a little bit about the top 10 paranormal news stories of many other years other than this year, and the few that we covered last week. The Earth is not a sphere. There's a different term for that. I forget what it is. The Earth is not round. It's not a sphere. It's not a perfect sphere. It's got a weird name to it. I forget. But anyway, moving forward. So yes. Let's see, I misspelled something. This is going to drive me crazy. There it is. That's good. Man, we'll do this. Latest Flat Earth International Conference draws people from around the globe. That's the headline for that story. That sounds a lot better than what I had. Anyway, you do have time to vote. I know I said that I'm pretty much have my top 10 in order the way I want it, but you still have time to vote. You can go to the Paranormal Poll page. If you visit paranewsinsider.com, you can click on the Paranormal Poll logo. There's also a link there, and it'll take you to the Paranormal Poll page where you can vote on what you feel is the top paranormal story of 2019. I have a short list there. There's maybe you have another one that you prefer. If that's the case, you can email me or send me a contact through the about/contact page. You can get a hold of me there. And also, I have another poll there which says, which one story would you like to see in the top 10 paranormal news stories of 2019? And again, there's a short list. I think there's 10 selections. And also ask what your favorite paranormal reality show is. And I'll talk about those. You can still vote after I start the top 10 next week. But the longer we draw towards the top 10, or the higher up in the top 10, pretty much the number one story, and the less likely I'm really going to take that as a weight. But if you do vote, again, I do appreciate it. I'll be talking about those results in the next couple of weeks. So I do appreciate those of you who have taken the time to vote, because your vote always makes a difference. Why are you laughing? It's not funny. It's true. Voting makes a difference. It really does. Anyway, yes, you can get a hold of me through my socials. Facebook /Paranews Insider, Twitter @Paranews Insider. And I also have an Instagram page, which I rarely update, unless I'm at an event. And question of the chat room, how many times can you vote? You can vote as many times as you want. I won't know. I really have no way to track who's voting. Probably should not have said that on the air, but I trust your integrity, because maybe there's more than one you want to vote for. I get so you can do that. You might have to refresh your browser or open up an incognito tab. I'm not trying to tell you how to navigate the internet, but yeah, I don't really know. I guess I could look deeper and find IP addresses and things. I don't have time for that. Just vote. We'll see. Just vote. Anyway, listening to the show, I sent a little thing out, a blurb, what you call it? Well, a Facebook thingy. It's easier when you call it a tweet for Twitter. But anyway, Facebook, I guess it was a tweet as well, about the show is available at iHeartRadio. It's also available through Podbean, which is where I put it out. Once I get done with the show, it goes up through Podbean. Goes to iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Podcast Addict. I also have a YouTube channel, Podchaser, TuneIn, and wherever else you listen to your podcasts and music, hopefully. That way you can enjoy it. You can take me on the road. Just don't drop me down the road, because that would hurt. I don't want to get skin grafts and things like that. Anyway, the events listing, I'll mention that really, really quick. It's updated. It's ready to go. It's all 2020. All the 2019 events are now officially over, according to my calendar. There might be a few that I left behind, and if there are, well, so sad. Too bad, so sad. Sorry, I didn't mean to forget you. If I did, it wasn't intentional. I do as much as I can with these lists of these events, and if I do miss one, hey, let me know. If you know of one that's happening in your backyard, or you're putting one on, let me know. You can, again, email me, insider@paranewsinsider.com. Go to the contact page on the Paranormal News Insider official website at paranewsinsider.com. And I've been getting a flurry of emails, well, a few emails. And I do want to thank the folks for the upcoming, it's almost a year away, October 16th through the 18th in 2020 in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, the 4th Annual Central Paranormal Convention, Paranormal. I love that. It's really unique. Reaching out to me for that. There's a couple of other people. I can't remember who you are, but do appreciate you. I did email you back at least, didn't I? Yes, I did. Okay. So this list is pretty big, and there's still a handful of ones that have not set a date. There's a few that I did put on here with the date to be decided, but there's a whole bunch of other ones that I have a little list going of ones that not sure if they're going to put one on, so I didn't bother putting it on the site. But I'm going to keep track of that as the calendar flips to 2020, and hopefully this list will once again be one of the best on the internet. Get a lot of great comments about that, and I do appreciate that. I hope I've done a great job again for you this year. Well, I see a mistake. Well, I'll fix it later. Anyway, I want to welcome everybody in the chat room to the show tonight, and we are going to jump into tonight's new news, and we're going to start in Oklahoma. Baseball players. I'm a huge baseball fan. I go to this will be the second year I've played out in Arizona for the Cleveland Indians fantasy camp next year. So I'll take a couple of weeks off in the beginning of the year for that. I love the game. It's starting to catch up with me a little bit, but I still enjoy the kids' game. It's so much fun, so enjoyable. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of time and effort, and a lot of baseball bats. But anyway, regular baseball players, well, they're pretty busy. Believe it or not, they spend a lot of time playing this game, practicing, working out, getting ready, trying to stay healthy. About 6 to 8 months of their time during the year is spent away from home with just a few days off a month. So a lot of baseball players like to take up interesting hobbies. We got a guy here in Cleveland. He's now in Cincinnati that used to fly drones until he cut his finger really bad. That was not good. But a lot of these guys, they like to hunt. So they go hunting in the fall, in the winter, which is perfect. Most of these teams are eliminated, and they're sitting at home so they can go and go hunt. And there's a guy named Jordy Mercer. And Jordy Mercer played for the Pittsburgh Pirates from 2008 until 2018 before signing a one-year deal for 2019 as an infielder for the Detroit Tigers. But right now, currently as we speak, he's a free agent. Who knows? Maybe Cleveland will pick him up. I don't know. We're looking for a second baseman. I don't know if I'll fit the bill. My hat's in there, Cleveland. If you're listening, I'm willing to play second base next year for you guys. Mercer has never made a big splash in the baseball headlines, as far as I know. I've heard of the guy and know the guy because obviously he's in the Central Division with the Indians, so I've seen him play a few times. But I don't think he's really ever done anything really major in the major leagues. No pun intended. But he's never made a big splash in the headlines there. But his 15 minutes of fame are officially here. On November 20th, Mercer tweeted out a set of photographs taken from his ranch in Oklahoma. The photographs were taken from a trail camera used to keep an eye out for wild game coming to a feeding station that he has set up. For 2 straight days in the afternoon on November 18th and 19th, a strange upright creature can be seen moving into the frame. Mercer simply tweeted, quote, "Anyone know what this is? Showed up back-to-back days on my deer camera," unquote, with a mention to his friend Jake Hobgood, who is also a hunter. Now, is this really Bigfoot caught on camera in Oklahoma? Could it be a practical joke by Jake or someone else on the ranch? Well, it might possibly even be a black bear that is standing up to survey the area. Black bears are generally seen in the southeastern part of the state, but can be found in a good portion of the area of the state as well. I don't know exactly where this Mercer Ranch is located, but it's getting a lot of attention. It doesn't really seem like this is a really big deal or an important deal. Mercer's been tweeting out a bunch of other stuff, so he's not gone back to this. He's not really answered anybody who's tweeted out any of, because everyone's an expert on the internet. Every time anybody sees a picture like this, they can instantly give an answer. They automatically know. I mean, everyone's just so wonderful. It's just so great to have such a pool of knowledge to pull from when you're posting stuff on Twitter, because everyone's an expert. My take, I don't know. There's a lot of people that are thinking this is a hoax. It's just somebody in a costume. I'm not sure. I don't think it's Bigfoot. I think I would lean more towards a practical joke. But I don't know. Could be a deer, not a deer. Could be a bear. I meant bear, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. It's an interesting picture, and it's the biggest story in Bigfoot right now. Let me get that. It's pretty cool too. I mean, when I saw a baseball headline about Bigfoot, of course, I freaked out. That was pretty cool. You don't get to see those two things hand in hand very often. And I was very lackluster in my research here. I did not get a picture, but I um, do have the link there in the chat room, so you can click on that and you can see a picture of the purported Bigfoot, of the two photographs of the purported Bigfoot in that. Well, we'll see. We'll stay tuned to see if this story continues to develop. Page not found. Well, that's not good. That's not good. Dina is the expert here. So let's see. Maybe I can find this real quick. Jordy Mercer and his Bigfoot. Whoops. It's it's not the biggest Bigfoot story of the year, but it is what it is, and it is getting a lot of attention. Yeah, this one should be good. I'll throw this one at you. That's another one that's been out and around for a while. So this is what you're missing out on. Free links in the chat room. It's not good, not as good as peanuts and Cracker Jack, pretzels, things like that thrown out to you in the baseball game, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. I appreciate. There it is. Anyway, moving along from Oklahoma, we're going to pack our bags and we're going to head all the way across the world to Vietnam. Vietnam, that's quite the travel. A couple days here by jet. But anyway, this is a story I've kind of set in the back burner. I didn't really forget about it. I guess I forgot about it. Well, I didn't forget. I just didn't have time to really wedge it in here over the last couple of weeks. Just never really fit in. And I wasn't in a hurry to talk about it, but I really wanted to talk about this no matter how old this story got. This is one of my favorite types of stories to talk about. I love these types of stories. In the Annamite Mountains in Vietnam, scientists have rediscovered the silver-backed chevrotain, a species of mouse deer that was thought to have gone extinct about 30 years ago, just disappeared. Yes, I said mouse deer. The Vietnamese, I should say, mouse deer is the world's smallest ungulate or hoofed animal. The silver-backed chevrotain is about the size of a rabbit or a small cat. So basically, one of the stories, or the headline said it can fit in the palm of your hand, which I guess a small cat could fit in the palm of your hand. You've got leather gloves on. The animal was on the Global Wildlife Conservation's 25 Most Wanted Lost Species list, which we've talked about here on the show at least twice, a couple of times at least. Of this list, this is actually the fifth animal that's been rediscovered, and a sixth one, which we did talk about here on the show. The Wandawee tree kangaroo was spotted and photographed by a scientist. I believe he was actually looking for plants. And that finding is awaiting verification from other scientists who hope to gather actual DNA samples, as well as some other evidence, because all they really had to go on was low-quality photographs gathered so far. It was just taken up the tree, so you can see this tree kangaroo's rear end, pretty much. With the silver-backed chevrotain, there has only been one record of the species since 1907, when an individual specimen was collected. Hundreds of photographs were taken via trail cams of this tiny and elusive animal recently, and now the search is on to discover how much of a population there is of this mouse deer. The rediscovery of the animal was published in the November 2019 scientific journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution. And as pointed out by Dita in the chat room, the natives were actually, oh no, I guess that was King, sorry. Dita usually knows everything. The natives there were actually eating them, these little mouse deer, bush bush meat, pretty much. Anything they could catch, small snare traps to catch these little creatures. A quick little snack. I mean, we've got Burger King and Wendy's and Chick-fil-A, and if you like, Popeye's chicken sandwiches, if that's your thing, we've got those. We've got those. In Vietnam, I guess you've got little mouse deer on a bun with cheese. Maybe not cheese. Well, they got cows, so probably cheese. I don't know if they have potatoes, so I don't know if you'd have fries. Maybe cheese curds. That would be delicious. Well, not with the mouse deer, I suppose. But anyway, these little guys were thought to be extinct. They're still not sure how many of these actually exist. Again, they have to go back out there. They have to look around. Hopefully you don't have to kill one of these things to officially count them or disturb them too much. And hopefully they can bring some snacks to keep the people away from continuing to eat them. Yikes. So that's our cryptid news for the week. Let me get a link there in the chat room. Hopefully this one works. I don't know what happened between... That's what I get for taking the story and waiting a couple of weeks to talk about it, I suppose. That's my fault. Oh, wait, that was the baseball one. Anyway, there's your link. Do what you will. And we're going to move quickly now to other news. And the topic that I don't normally talk about, conspiracy theories, but we have talked about flat Earth before. Flat Earth was actually one of the top stories a few years ago, which we'll talk about here in a couple of minutes. Yes, conspiracy theories, not really one of the cornerstones of the show, of the Paranormal News Insider, despite using the term insider in the name. It's not meant to allude to having secret knowledge of the underground or conspiracy theories or anything like that. It's just because I'm involved in all these fields, so I kind of have an inside look at how things go, especially evidence and how people are in these fields and so on and so forth. Not secret knowledge of conspiracy theories and things, but there are and have been plenty of conspiracies that people have subscribed to over the years, but this one has been growing a lot recently. And of course, yes, it's the flat Earth movement. I don't know why, but people are just jumping on this bandwagon, and hopefully they don't fall over the edge. So over November 14th and 15th was the 4th annual Flat Earth International Conference, and that took place in the Dallas, Texas area. These conferences have slowly gained in popularity from the attention they have received by the media over the few years, and pretty much from this time of the year. And I know I've talked about it the last couple of years. It's getting a lot of media attention, and many of the people, and this is the same thing that I read every year. A lot of the people that attend this state that they've only recently discovered or realized or consider that the Earth is flat and not round or spherical. Those who believe the Earth is flat also had the tendency to believe in other conspiracy theories about the world. Yep, that's true. That raised that thing in one of the articles I was reading, I believe on CNN. We're talking about how people have a tendency to believe in a lot of other conspiracy theories. But this is the big one. This is the one that brings people together in the masses. The Earth is flat. And a lot of these people that, again, just some of them, I think the average was about 4 years, 3 to 4 years that people have just believed this. And a lot of them state that they've tried to prove that the Earth was round or spherical, but they couldn't. They didn't have a big enough tape measure or level, I guess. I don't know. They didn't have a spaceship that could take them out. I don't know. They won't get a window seat on a jet. I don't know. It seems pretty easy to me. I think I proved it to myself when I was like 12, 10. I forget. Those who believe the Earth is flat also, again, tend to have other conspiracy theories about the world. And one of these conspiracy theories that drive the flat Earth theory is that NASA, yes, NASA, the organization that brought us the space shuttle, that's helped push to get us out into space, has been fighting the government to get more money to get us to go out into space. Well, they're behind this entire thing, this entire cover-up, fooling you, telling you that the Earth is spherical, selling you those globes at Walmart. Well, I guess I got to be fair. And on Amazon as well, you can buy them there. But yeah, they're photoshopping pictures of the Earth. They've been fooling us this whole time. Photoshop. They've been even photoshopping the Earth long since before Photoshop was even invented. I think that's a bigger conspiracy. How could they be photoshopping the Earth before Photoshop was invented? That's the real conspiracy theory here. Anyway, they believe a large organization of people are behind the cover-up, which is, again, I think that's really ridiculous. A large amount of people. How are they going to keep that a secret? I mean, it's hard enough to get a small group of people not to leak information, especially on the internet, let alone a global conspiracy. It was said by organizers that over 600 people attended this year's conference in Dallas, Texas. Is the flat Earth theory picking up steam? That's the million-dollar question. We ask that every year, and there for a while it seemed like it was, and then it kind of went away, and then it came back, then it went away, kind of like it was going round and round a globe. From those attending, you would think so. And they state that more and more events are popping up all over the world every year, all over the globe every year. The big issue here is that the FEIC, the Flat Earth International Conference event, is probably, I don't want to say it's the most attended, but it's obviously, from what I've seen, the most popular one in the media, especially CNN and ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. Everybody's talking about the Flat Earth Conference every single year. But the big news on this that a lot of people aren't reporting is that according to their website, this could be the last year. So the Flat Earth Conference website, flatearthconference.com, is stating this could be the last year. Robbie Davidson has decided to pass the torch on the website and the event overall and is looking for someone to take over. So if this conference fails to get the attention that the past ones received or it ceases to exist, we may see this flat Earth fad flatten out, at least here in the United States. I don't see it going away. People have a tendency right now to believe in things that go against everything. Nobody trusts anybody, and people want to believe the most ridiculous thing they can think of, and this is pretty ridiculous. I mean, I wish I could say that I believe you. I really do, but I mean, I've seen the curve. And I've not been that high up in the sky, but I've seen the curve. I've been on boats. I've seen land disappear. I've seen land. I mean, there's a curve. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult to prove to yourself. It's amazing though to listen to these people, and a lot of these people, especially Robbie, who puts this on every year. These are people that said, "Hey, I thought people that thought the Earth was flat were stupid, and were just not intelligent, just didn't understand things." But then it dawned on them that hey, maybe the Earth is flat. And they couldn't figure it out on their own, so they just jumped to that conclusion themselves, and they've convinced themselves now. And that's what's happening with a lot of people. And one of these days, hopefully, we'll see if they pick it up again. If they come to Cleveland, I'm going. I'm going. I'll wear my Around the World Tour shirt, something just to irritate the people. But I'll listen. I've watched the videos, It just none of it makes any sense to me. I mean, to live on a flat, like a pizza pie with a little thing over the top of us, like we're dinner or something. I don't buy it. Anyway, let me throw that. Hopefully this link works. Throw this in the chat room for you guys to devour, to check out when you have time. Whatever. But if you're not in the chat room, you're not live in the chat room with the gang, the group, then but don't worry, because I will be putting these links out through the social media, the aforementioned social media outlets throughout the week. Of course, there's a big holiday on Thursday, but I'll still be putting those out. And there it is. The link is good. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. And last but not least, tonight, just when you thought the fad was gone and you would only hear about this story during the top 10 paranormal news stories of 2019, that's right. The storming continues. Dun, dun, dun. Tomorrow, November 27th, is the Facebook event Storm Area 51 Australian edition. Yeah, we're making new additions. Hey, don't worry though, this is not millions of people. A staggering, astonishing, large volume of a whopping 300 people have signed up to storm the Pine Gap U.S. satellite surveillance base and Australian Earth station located in the Northern Territory of Australia. If you've seen this on a map, it's pretty much dead center right there in Australia. It's probably in one of the worst areas of the whole country. Yes, Australia is a country. It's also a continent, but Australia as a continent also includes other countries that don't belong to Australia. Does that make sense? No? Good. Hope I confused you. Anyway, Pine Gap is known as Australia's Area 51. Although it has much less of a colorful history regarding aliens, as it only began operation back in 1970, and it was pretty much in response to the Cold War. So the base is essentially a large-scale computer complex that takes in data from spy satellites and other communication satellites. And again, it was used early on to monitor for nuclear tests by China and Russia and other potential threats in the Eastern Hemisphere. No word about aliens, though. I don't know why they're going to storm there. Anyway, a second event is scheduled for Saturday, November 30th, which is confusing, with only 29 in that event. So I guess you're going to have to call off work, call off school, and go on Wednesday. It's safe to say that this story probably won't be making the top 10 this year and will more than likely not make the news next week. Because if 300 people said they were going, look at the Storm Area 51 event. Only a fraction of those people went. So probably nobody going to go out there and storm. It's probably pretty warm out there right now, I would imagine, in that area. It is summertime down there, right? I do believe in Australia. Could be wrong. Could be right. Yikes. Yes, in Australia, I would not want to wander around the outback by myself. Lots of dangerous creatures. Lots of weird stuff. Granted, maybe I'll find a thylacine. I don't know. Anyway, that being said, I'm going to now point in the direction of the past. Last week we talked about the paranormal news stories of 2010, the top 10 of 2010, looking back 10 years on the show. And I also mentioned I didn't really do a top 10 the year the show started in 2008, nor did I do one in 2009, because the show was pretty much a monthly show. It didn't go weekly until the end of 2010. But that's why I decided to reflect back, because I did 52 shows in 2011. But 2010, we started to do weekly in September. So I had a number of shows piling up. So I decided to look back on the year that was and it got a pretty good audience with that. People really enjoy that. They thought it was really interesting to talk about the stories that were. And I think it's necessary that we do stop every now and again and talk about the stories that have come in years past, because we have a tendency to forget about these things. And a lot of times, it's interesting, these stories repeat themselves and over and over again. And over and over again. And we see some stories that we're like, wow, this is going to be major. And then it turns out to be a hoax. But anyway, I do this time of the year like to reflect back. And I'm going to talk about kind of briefly the top 10 of the last few years, starting with 2011. And, it dawned on me today before I was getting ready for the show. I kind of got sidetracked. Imagine that. Thought about doing a top 10 of the decade, the last decade. What a monumental task that would be, because I couldn't just take the top, the number one stories of every year. I'd have to take maybe number 2 or number 3, because not all years are created equal, as you'll find out. So we talk briefly again about 2011, the year that was. What a weird year. It was the second year of creating the list of the top 10 stories for me. 2011 was the first full year of the Paranormal News Insider, doing 52 weeks. It's a lot of work. And, 2010, when we first went to a weekly show, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get enough information to be able to do a show that quick. It just was mind-boggling. Now it's what I do. Anyway, the number 10 story dropped on August 15th, 2011, was a report that a mysterious animal was seen on the dead on the side of the road in Minnesota. It was photographed by a passerby. The animal was pale white and nearly hairless, with a tuft of hair in the middle of its back. The claws were long and it had a broken neck, more than likely caused by a collision with a vehicle. Since the animal was photographed on pavement. The photo made its rounds on Facebook and other social media outlets, which prompted, of course, an inquiry as to its identity. And of course, everyone's an expert on social media, so everyone was throwing out their 2 cents. Very reminiscent of the Montauk Monster of August of 2008. The online speculation turned viral, and guesses to its identity ran from plausible to ridiculous. Scientists were baffled, as they usually are, which their bafflement, is that a word? Well, if it's not, I just invented it. Their being baffled sparked even more controversy and silly claims. A few days later, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources examined the photo of the animal and determined it was a badger. A badger. The photo was one of the most popular viral cryptid photos since the Montauk Monster. And the reason why it was all the way down at number 10 was a badger. It's a badger. This was a huge story. Number 9 of 2011. On Saturday, March 5th, it was announced that a NASA scientist had found proof of extraterrestrial life. That's right. I read it too. I was like, wait, what? I was going to include it in my show. Something told me something wasn't right. Well, on Monday, so we had a whole weekend to think about this, NASA officially refuted the story, stated that the scientist in question did not follow proper peer review protocol to verify his claims. So the original claim made back in 2007 never went through any peer review process for others to prove or disprove the work. Not a conspiracy. I just never stood up to scientific scrutiny. I mean, it was a big story. This is a major headline. But a lot of people were questioning it as soon as it came out. Number 8, the story began to evolve on September 26th. The long-standing thought that the speed of light is the fastest speed anything can travel was challenged by scientists at CERN. So CERN is where the Large Hadron Collider is. and it caused a lot of controversy. It was in a lot of the top 10 throughout the years. It's been kind of quiet lately ever since, well, we'll talk about that in a little bit, since a weird story happened. Scientists working at the largest physics lab noted that neutrinos were sent from Geneva, Switzerland to Italy. They actually arrived a little earlier than what they were planned. They arrived 60 billionths of a second early from their 454-mile underground trip, making scientists wonder if they missed some data along the way. It's I don't even know what ended up coming out of this, but it seemed like these neutrinos were arriving before, almost at the same time they were being released. Weird. So there's still some questions behind that legitimacy, but it was a big announcement, and objects traveling faster than the speed of light would just break physics. Anyway, number 7, witnesses in Russia, in the Mount Shoria region of Siberia, saw a Yeti-like creature, and it led to the creation of the University Research Institute to get to the bottom of the numerous sightings. And one Russian scientist, Igor Burtsev, he thinks that the Yeti was a Neanderthal man who somehow survived the genetic removal of the species of man around 30,000 years ago. October 10th, we discussed the U.S. and Russian scientists holding a convention and subsequent investigation of the Siberian region of Kemerovo to hunt and the elusive Siberian snowman. That was a joke. The investigation was meant to be a quick jaunt into the forest, but they thought that they found it. They said that they found definite proof the Yeti exists. They found one white hair and some tracks in a cave. It was really weird because it seemed like a setup, and it pretty much more than likely was a setup. Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who was present at the excursion, spoke out during his speaking engagement at the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Conference in the fall of 2011. Meldrum basically stated the events seemed staged and too convenient, and he felt the event was being used as a means to fuel the tourism industry in the area. So there you have it. The number 6 story in 2011 was a weird event, a series of events that was taking place. It was really weird. I've not seen this since. And it was basically UFOs at football games. So on Saturday, September 3rd in South Bend, Indiana, the Fighting Irish were fighting Mother Nature during a football game that was paused twice due to severe lightning. It was during one of these delays, lightning struck one of the buildings of the stadium. As the crews panned the skies, an apparent UFO was filmed. The UFO is described as a flying rod, but flying rods were explained away many, many years ago as camera artifacts caused by the motion of birds or bugs. And after watching the video myself, I would definitely say they were birds that were flying and definitely not something unexplainable. Later in October, a UFO over a sports stadium was filmed by a guy in the stands. High school game in Arizona included some interesting lights near the stadium. That one ended up being flares attached to parachutists' feet, which is a common theme, especially that time of the year in the fall. A lot of people are having these at their stadiums. Another video from a New Orleans Saints game on October 23rd showed what was supposedly a UFO in the sky. Coming back from a commercial break, caused a lot of controversy. But in fact, the photographer was videographer was using time-lapse photography. So this blur was actually just an airplane that was blurred because of the quick movement of the film. But anyway, so a lot of those stories, I kind of bundled those together, and I do that to get them to boost up higher. But of course, and to make it even playing field, having UFOs is always a good thing to have in your top 10. Number 5, the world of astrology. You probably remember this. This was a pretty big story. January 10th, 2011. A lot of people were led to believe the horoscopes were changing. People had to go and get new new tattoos now. But it's just based on an old system, and people were confused. Nothing was changing. It's just the story. It'd come out before, and people got all panicky over nothing. Recycled news. Number 4 was chupacabra. So one part of this was that workers in, Maryland saw a chupacabra. They took numerous pictures in an attempt to identify this creature. It had a long snout, pointy ears, a long tail, completely hairless. One worker thought this was a kangaroo dog rat mix with a deer head. Yikes. And this was at a hospital. So hopefully that was a janitor that saw that. The animal was quickly nicknamed Prince Chupa and turned into a worldwide sensation. Well, it turns out it was just a fox with severe mange. It was also the year, March 28th, that a book called Tracking the Chupacabra by Benjamin Radford made its debut. And that book pretty much put to rest at least the North American chupacabra, as well as the Puerto Rico story initially that started in 1995. Number 3, interestingly enough, is a television show that's no longer on the air, just left the air not too long ago. We talked about Michael Green the other night from the year prior, Top 10 Paranormal News Stories. Well, he was the first guest on a brand new show called Finding Bigfoot. Finding Bigfoot made its debut on June 5th of 2011. It's a big deal. Number 2 story of the year, a pretty big story all year long, caused all sorts of panic. Had its own Google map with little pins of the sightings all over the place. It was headline news. People were freaking out over this. It actually started on December 31st, 2010, where 3,000 blackbirds were mysteriously found dead on roofs and roads in the small town of Beebe, Arkansas. It was thought to be fireworks scaring them, but nonetheless, this was the beginning of the apocalypse. Numerous stories of birds, of fish, all sorts of animals washing up dead or falling from the sky. All really explainable stuff, but when they're all packaged together as different stories, people started to panic over these things. They thought it was the end of the world. People literally thought the world was coming to an end. Something was changing. The poles were flipping, or the sun was exploding, or I don't know what else. The Beatles were coming back. I don't know, but it's just something was just crazy going on. But these were all individually explainable. Again, when you have a lot of animal mass die-offs happening all at the same time, it just creates panic. And that's exactly what happened. And that was your number 2 story. The number 1 story of 2011, UFOs over Jerusalem. This was a long, ongoing thing. And what got me was there were multiple videos from multiple angles, which is the holy grail of UFO sightings. But unfortunately, it didn't take too long for too many people, including myself, to time these videos up and see that they were all different. The lights were different. The flashes were different. It just didn't add up. And during the year, officially, MUFON killed it and said it was officially a hoax. 2012, quickly run through that. Number 10 was William Roll, the parapsychologist. He passed away in, I don't remember the date, but 2012. Grant Wilson moves on from ghost hunters. It was a long time ago. Number 9 was cryptolinguist R. Scott Nelson. His son was listening to the Sierra sounds, and Nelson went on to create an alphabet of the samurai chatter. Didn't really do anything big with that, but reported the story back then. Number 8 was the Falcon Project. It was supposed to be a remote-controlled airship for looking for Bigfoot. It was initially used to search for a suspected killer in Utah. Never heard anything from that ever again either. Number 7 story, the first and only time it's ever appeared in the top 10 paranormal news stories of any year, spontaneous human combustion. Ryan J. Ford was reportedly able to discover a possible answer to that, and the root cause might be diabetes, not diabetes. Sorry, Wilford Brimley. Diabetes. Number 6 was teleportation. Chinese researchers announced they have teleported photons 96 kilometers. Basically, they disappeared and reappeared in a different location. Fantastic story, but I've not heard, I think I've only heard one other follow-up to that in the last 7 years. Number 5 was the Aflocalypse Part 2. It's happening again. Number 4 was Bigfoot. A bunch of Bigfoot stories all run together, as they usually do. The number 3 story of 2012 was the Higgs boson discovery. It's upcoming. The so-called God particle. We're on the cusp of finding it. Well, not me. I wasn't there. I was hoping for it, but I wasn't there. Didn't participate. Number 2 was the Baltic Sea UFO discovered by Swedish Ocean X team that looked like the Millennium Falcon. You probably remember that story. That story ended up falling apart. It was discovered as a way to get money for expeditions. They did redo that, I think, just a couple of years ago. It came back again. The number 1 story that year of 2012 was sky noise. Sky noise, one of the first events that ever happened, I believe it was in British Columbia, was later solved as a road grader at a skate park. And that background sound was used in a number of videos all over the world, getting people to think that this thing was happening all over the place. But eventually, it got so much airtime, so much airplay that it eventually was the number 1 story of 2012. 2013, a weird story fell at number 10. Park rangers in Indonesian National Park claimed that they saw 20-inch dreadlocked pygmies running around a park. Yes, pygmies. Number 9 was mass UFO sighting over Detroit. A number of people reported seeing a UFO. I don't think that was ever solved. But interesting here. But not as big as the Chicago sighting back in 2008. Number 8 was an OBE experiment, an out-of-body experience. People were using VR equipment, were basically able to feel things that weren't actually there based on just seeing things. Pretty weird. It's going to lead to new discoveries, I'm sure, down the road. Number 7 was another story that's only been seen once, never again to make it in the top 10, and that was cattle mutilations. And these happened in Missouri. There were also other strange cattle mutilations in Colorado, Nebraska, Idaho, and in Argentina. There was also a cow that was burned. There's a weird burn mark in the grass that was discovered in the United Kingdom that year. Cattle mutilations. Number 6, you might remember this story, Russell Crowe's UFO. Russell Crowe posted a picture. He uploaded a thing onto YouTube. The video was actually a series of photographs with time lapse in the Royal Botanical Gardens of Sydney, Australia. And the photos were taken years prior. It shows a bright red light in the sky and a white light at mid-tree level. It was blurry. But it didn't take long for people to figure out it was the mast of a passing sailboat. Number 5, very popular story, the magical car accident priest. So there was an accident. This priest mysteriously showed up out of nowhere, helped somebody, and then mysteriously disappeared, and nobody knew who he was. Well, that wasn't true, but that's how the story got put out there in the social media. This person was identified as Reverend Patrick Dowling. People did see him. He did talk to people. But the story took on a whole different life of its own. Number 4 is kind of a sad story when you think about it. But number 4 in 2013 was the return and departure of Art Bell. So Art Bell left terrestrial radio, and he came back on XM satellite, but then disappeared again. Number 3 was Dr. Melba Ketchum's effort. Melba Ketchum, along with Adrian Erickson of the Erickson Project, trying to get work published about Bigfoot, saying that Bigfoot was real. They had pictures that looked like Chewbacca. Remember that disaster? Yeah. Number 2 was Sky Noise. Again, Sky Noise made a return, even though we pretty much figured most of these were fake stories, but took us time. Number 1 of 2013 was the Brian Sykes DNA study. Brian Sykes, a professor of human genetics at Harvard University, conducted DNA analysis on several samples said to be of Bigfoot origin. They all came back as identifiable animals: deer, bear. And this is where the Yeti story started to fall apart as well. 2014, the number 10 story that year, the porcelain dolls of San Clemente, California. Creepy story. I know I talked about this during the year because we had a similar incident where dolls were just put in weird places all over the city. With the porcelain dolls of San Clemente, California, these dolls look like the girls that actually lived in the houses these dolls were delivered to. That is spooky. It was discovered that a woman was actually wanting to spread goodwill. I mean, whatever happened to baked goods? I don't get that. Number 9 was the Lagerflat worm was actually validated. This guy won money. And it was actually a thing that's we've talked about a number of times here on the show called frazzle ice. It's ice that just grips on an object like a rope or something else that's in the water, and it just goes with the flow, and it looks like it's moving, but it's not. Well, it is moving, but not moving in the direction that you think it is. Number 8 was a database of faked ghost pictures at paranormalanalyst.com. Unfortunately, by the end of the year, that website was up for sale, and it did make the top 10. Number 7 was a viral photograph of a giant crab called Crabzilla. This was a real story. Number 6 was Sasquatch Ontario's outrageous claim, and they claimed that Bigfoot has interdimensional capabilities. And they were serious. Number 5, Siberian craters, strange holes seemingly entered all over the place, caused by methane gas when permafrost was melting. So kind of a global warming paranormal story for you. Number 4 was the Gary, Indiana home infested by over 200 ghosts and demons that was sold to Zach Bagans. Number 3, videos of ghosts at soccer games. There was a number of these. Strange people showing up at soccer games. So we had football games the year prior with UFOs, and now soccer games. Lots of individual sightings turned into MUFON. It was one of the biggest years of MUFON history, I believe, that year. Pretty much sparked by a TV show. Number 1 story of 2014, cryptozoology attempting to embrace science by forming the International Cryptozoology Museum Journal. Haven't heard too much about that, but that's your 2011 through 2014 top 10. If we do have time, we'll talk about 15, 16, 17. If not, next week I'll mention the 2018 stories because some of them may tie into 2019. But again, next week is the debut of the top 10 paranormal news stories of 2019. The number 10, number 9, and number 8 stories of 2019. Some of these may have been chosen by you, the listener. And again, if you want to try to get in the mix there, or put your personal stamp on things, you can go and you can vote. Going to paranewsinsider.com, clicking on the paranormal poll link at the top of the picture, and you can go right into that. But vote quickly because I got to get all this stuff put together quickly for next week for the top 10 paranormal news stories of 2019. And I'm going to get tired of saying top 10 paranormal news stories, but you probably get tired of hearing it as well. But anyway, I'm excited about this, to put this down. Hopefully I'll get my blog written about that, not too distant future. That being said, have a safe and happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it, if you can. And remember, be thankful even as you make your way out to the stores. If you're going shopping after that Thursday night, or if you're going out Friday, a lot of these retail workers, they're missing out. They can't, they won't have a chance to spend a whole lot of time with their families during the holidays. So, I mean, in my opinion, be thankful for what you got already. Celebrating Thanksgiving by rushing out and buying new things doesn't make sense to me. But if you have to, if you really need to, you think you're getting the best deal, which you're probably not, remember those that are working. So if you get upset about something, just have a tendency to just stop and think about these poor people that have to work to help you because you want to shop. And I'm one of those people. Anyway, big thanks to my producer and everybody else for tuning in tonight, especially live in the chat room. And if you didn't, I get it. I understand. You can't always be in the chat room. But I enjoy you listening nonetheless. And again, have a very happy Thanksgiving. Keep your eyes in the skies, your ears in the woods, the hair standing on the back of your neck. Is that a turkey? No, it's not a turkey. And always keep your mind slightly ajar. And above all else, pass the cranberry sauce. And don't stop believing. For the Paranormal News Insider, this is Dr. Brian D. Parsons reporting.